Folks, it's Ms. Schossler. I want to talk to you just a little bit about the differences between quality improvement projects and qualitative and quantitative research to make your searching a little bit easier in the library. I want to start with a quality improvement project. This is an example of what we do not want to choose as high-level research. It is certainly evidence. Generally, a quality improvement initiative or a performance improvement project is aimed at starting a new process in the hospital and collecting data before, maybe during and after you start that process. For example, if you are starting bedside report, you might collect data as part of a performance improvement project to see what your patient satisfaction scores are prior to starting the change, prior to implementing bedside report. And then perhaps you implement the report. Maybe you have a month, which is your transition month, where you're doing education and you're maybe the nurse managers do the report with everyone to increase compliance and to educate anyone on it. Perhaps even your nurse educator comes around and does it as well. So we collect data during that as well, and then we go to business as normal with bedside reporting as the norm with a new policy in place, and you collect some more satisfaction data to see if there's any change. Did it make a difference? That is not research, but it is evidence that you implemented a change in policy and looked to see whether it was working. Most hospitals have performance improvement projects that do that very thing. You might have even been part of your performance improvement projects at your hospital. So we would not discount them. In fact, you might use quality improvement initiatives to look on their reference pages to see if they based the project on research that was already done. So it can be a way of finding additional research. And it certainly can be a way of learning information about what steps they took, because one thing facilities are really good at when they do these type of projects is listing out all the steps that they took during the process or during the change. So while quality improvement and performance improvement are wonderful things, and we've all been part of them, they are not high-level research and evidence. So you would want to avoid them for the assignments in this class. I wanted to show you, though, this one is very clear. It says quality improvement initiative. Many of them will say performance improvement or quality improvement somewhere in the article or as part of the title. And certainly it's a giveaway when it's part of the title, but many times it's hidden in the body of the article somewhere. You can see this is even set up looking like a research project. And indeed, people that do performance improvement articles, when they're writing the article about their project, do often set it up to look like a research article. Right here, the abstract, the background, the methods, the results can very much look like a research project. So you want to be real careful. You must always read through the entire article when you choose an article to use for a project, a paper in this class. In any class, read through the whole article. Don't go by just what the abstract says, but read through that, because at first glance, if you look at this, you think, oh, I'm on the right track because it looks like it's set up like an abstract in a research paper. So be very careful. Read it all. I promise you, in the verbiage, you will find terms that indicate it's quality improvement or performance improvement, or they will very clearly state that they're implementing a process change in a unit or a hospital. And that is not what research is about. Research is a very rigorous process answering a research question or multiple research questions. So this is an example of one not to choose. Generally, you will also find that in the verbiage of the article, they will mention QI or performance improvement several times, and they will many times discuss that when they took it to IRB or to the ethics committee, it was waived, the project was waived for one reason or another, either because they were not conducting research, or they were not, sometimes not dealing with live patients. For whatever reason, it will be waived from the ethics committee or the IRB. That's another big hint that it is not research. Okay, so that's an example of what not to choose. Now let's look at this article. This is a qualitative research study. I do always love when the authors put it in the title for us to help us. So you see it clearly in this title. You know, when you are looking at, let me enlarge it a little bit for us. When you're looking at research, of course you want to last 5 years. You want to keep it nice and recent. You want to have the full article, not just the abstract, but the abstract helps us understand whether we will continue to look at it, and sometimes whether we absolutely won't, but you have to have more than the abstract. In this abstract, it does say the study was an analysis of qualitative data collected as part of a larger study. So that, as a reader, it would make me want to go get the larger study to see what that was. Of course, you want to make sure it's within the last 5 years, and then sometimes in this class, for one assignment, we're critiquing an article, so the fact that it lists each section out in the abstract is very nice because it helps give you some of that information, draws you right to that section that you'll need to help critique it. And then for the larger paper in our class, we're not critiquing, but we're using a number of quantitative research studies and really looking at them as a body of evidence. In this study, you see the background. Remember, if you're critiquing an article, you're looking to see if the authors did what they should do in a research study. So, for example, did they include a literature review section? Was it clearly marked? And how many articles and from what years were the articles used from the literature review? You will always be asked about the design of the study. In this case, it's written for you. And remember, we're looking for two things. We're looking for the overall type of study, qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods. You want to limit your studies to those things for the week 4 assignment, because you're critiquing based on some specific questions that you can only get from those type of articles. For example, what was the sample size, and what was the research question, was a literature review completed, rather than if you took those questions and tried to look at a literature review article instead, you would have trouble answering those questions. Even a meta-analysis or another type of study, you would have trouble answering the specific things you need to build into your paper. This one is very detailed. It gives you nice headings, draws the reader to those sections, a method section. Now remember, we're looking at a qualitative research study. In a qualitative research study, we would expect that data analysis is not done using numbers. So if we're looking at qualitative, the authors are looking at either observations or words that are used or responses that are gathered. That's the type of data that's being analyzed. And in this case, the students completed a brief survey instrument which included both quantitative and open-ended items. The qualitative data presented was analyzed using conventional content analysis. So reading that method section, because there's both quantitative and open-ended items, it makes me think it's mixed methods, which is fine for our purposes as well, but a combination of quantitative and qualitative makes a mixed methods study. However, if they only used their quantitative data to tell you about the demographics, then it's still qualitative in nature. So let's scroll down a little bit. You've got a nice literature review section that you would critique about how many works were discussed, what year range the authors wrote from, and what the subject matter generally was in the literature review section. Your design section is more detail about specifically how the study was conducted. Participants, when we're critiquing, we're always looking to see the number of participants in a study, and did the authors tell us whether that number was large enough or not? If not, was the number large enough? You would want to go to our course information or research the subject on your own for how large the study needs to be when you look at the type of study it is. Because quantitative studies need a different amount, qualitative studies need a different amount of participants. The methods used is listed for you there, objectives, and the results are fully described. And remember, this is a qualitative study, or the title tells us it's a qualitative study, so we would expect that the information from open-ended questions is gathered together and presented in themes. So a theme might be knowing how medication works, or patient teaching, or assessment with pharmacology. Now that theme might have been derived from the title of a question that was asked, or it might be derived from the author's review of the responses and then just grouping them into themes. Let's just see. Yes, all of those responses up to that section are in qualitative format. They're telling you the themes in the open-ended responses. And then it lists the implications, which is always valuable information for us in a nursing research study. And then we have findings classified by impact of pharmacological education on safe practice. So this is just the number of studies performed and then each theme. So still qualifies as qualitative data because it's all about the responses that the students gave, and then conclusions. Remember, important to note the recommendations and conclusions in any research study because that's what we're after. So that's a qualitative example of a study for you. And then let's look at a quantitative study. Nursing staff retention effective factors. And then it's got a nice abstract. It describes for us a cross-sectional descriptive quantitative study carried out in Tehran, the capital city of Iran. Tells you how many, gives you some nice good details in the very beginning of it. And the same thing, we're looking at the introduction, we're looking at the, we're looking specifically to see if there's a literature review section. And in this case, I do not see a literature review section. I do see an introduction, and many times, if there's no designated literature review section, the introduction will include information from your literature review. It just won't be clearly labeled, and I would make that part of my critique, that while a literature review section was not clearly labeled, works from 12 different authors were brought together, ranging over the years of blank to blank, in the review of literature. The materials and methods are listed there, tells you a little bit more about the actual methodology of the study, and then the results are listed for you. They used a Likert scale, and that's what you see descriptive statistics about. They give you numerical results, and remember that's the thing that drives a quantitative research study is numerical data analysis and results. Then you have a nice discussion, some nice statistics posted for us, and then some really good examples of the stress factors that were listed in the survey. Lots of great numbers and a conclusion section. So again, quantitative research, all about the statistics and the analysis of numerical information. And so anytime you see just statistics and numerical information, t-tests and regression analysis, anytime you see just numbers analyzed where data has been gathered in a research study, because remember, you could see just numbers evaluated in a quality improvement or performance improvement project, but anytime you see it in a way that they tell you it's a qualitative or quantitative research study, we're seeing just numerical data analysis. They go to the IRB or the ethics committee and get approval for the research study. Those are all things that tell you it's a quantitative research study. And then you're simply looking for the parts and the pieces that make up a good research study. So there is a quick overview of the differences between these three types of studies. Mixed methods as well could be used, and that's a combination qualitative and quantitative research study. But those are the studies that we want to use in the week 4 assignment. Qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods. And then in the week 5/final, because that is a 2-part assignment that's done both in week 5 and then completed in week 7, that work needs to be quantitative in nature. If you have any questions, I would love to talk to you.